We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Haley used to tell me that marriage got boring when people stopped paying attention to the small things. I never thought much about that line until the night I realized she'd stopped paying attention to me long before she ever admitted it out loud. I saw in the way she passed me in the hallway like I was background furniture, the way her eyes lit up for her phone, but never for my face, the way she laughed at jokes from people I never met, but barely smiled at the ones I made for her. Something inside our home felt colder for months, like the warmth had been leaking through cracks I couldn't see. And the worst part, I kept convincing myself I was imagining it. The morning everything began spiraling, she came downstairs in a fitted black blazer, hair curled, perfume stronger than usual, too strong for a normal work day. She stood by the kitchen counter scrolling through her phone, barely noticing me flipping pancakes like I'd done every Wednesday since we got married. "You're working late again?" I asked casually. She didn't lift her eyes. "There's a client meeting tonight. Important deal. You don't need to wait for me." "Okay," I said, but something in her tone pressed itself into my ribs. A distance, a dismissal, a wall. She kissed my cheek the way someone pats a stranger's dog and rushed out the door. No warmth, no lingering touch, no real connection. I stared after her wondering when we stopped being us. Hours later, when her message came, taking a client out for drinks. "Don't wait up." I felt that same knife of dread twist. Not because she worked late. She'd always had deadlines, meetings, conferences. But everything about her recent behavior felt rehearsed, too polished, too prepared. Routine mattered to me. I was a graphic designer who lived by structure. Morning runs, coffee at 7:30, lunch break at exactly noon, dinner at 6 unless a project ran long. Haley used to fit into that rhythm effortlessly. She would text me throughout the day, send me memes, complain about office drama, ask what I wanted for dinner. But lately, nothing. No check-ins. No updates, just distance and excuses. Sometimes I catch her smiling at her phone, then locking the screen the moment she saw me walk in. And each time she'd brush it off with, "Just work stuff, Chris. Relax." But I'd been around long enough to know when a smile isn't meant for me. By late afternoon, I found myself pacing the living room, glancing at the clock, rereading her text like it might suddenly change. Something felt wrong, the kind of wrong that tightens your chest and makes your fingers restless. I finally grabbed my phone and messaged my oldest friend, Mark. He was the manager at Riverstone Bar and Grill, the same place Haley once told me was too fancy for regular meetings, but somehow had become her go-to spot lately. I typed fast, "You working tonight?" He replied instantly, "Yeah, what's up?" My next message felt heavier than it should have. "Is Haley there?" It took Mark almost 3 minutes to respond. The longest 3 minutes of my life. When my phone finally buzzed, his message wasn't a yes or no. It was, "Call me." I felt my heartbeat slam into my throat. When I answered, his voice wasn't casual. It wasn't confused. It was upset. "Chris, I'm really sorry, man." Those words alone nearly buckled my knees. He lowered his voice like he didn't want anyone else hearing. "She's here, but she's not with a client. And the way they're sitting, no one sits like that unless there's something going on." I didn't speak. I couldn't. Mark continued, anger spilling into his tone. "The guy has a wedding ring on. And Haley, she looks different. Like she's trying to impress him." I felt something inside me collapse. Not loudly, just quietly, the way a bridge gives way after years of unnoticed cracks. I asked Mark for one thing, proof. He hesitated, then whispered, "You sure?" "Yes," I said, though it felt like swallowing glass. "Send me everything." The photo came first. A clear shot of Haley leaning in close to a man I'd never seen before. Hands too close, smiles too intimate, body language too familiar. Her eyes glowed. Her posture softened. She looked like a woman with no husband waiting at home. Then the receipt arrived. 1 appetizer, 2 entrees, 2 drinks, a dessert they shared, a date disguised as a meeting. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour, heat rising behind my eyes, breath shaking, every part of me breaking apart in slow motion. I remembered our early routines, her curling into my chest on cold nights, whispering dreams about kids someday, the way she'd jump on my back when she was excited. I remembered her telling me I was her safe place. Safe. But she had taken that safety and traded it for secrecy. When the shock settled, something else rose to replace it. Not rage, not despair, a chilling, quiet clarity. I wasn't going to confront her with yelling. I wasn't going to plead or beg her to explain. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to be patient, very patient, because the best revenge doesn't show up screaming. It waits. It calculates. It chooses the perfect moment. And Haley had no idea that the person who was about to knock on my front door, calm, composed, carrying her own unanswered questions, was the key to everything that would unfold next. The knock on my front door wasn't loud, but sliced through the house like a blade. I already knew who it was before I even opened it. I had texted her the photo Mark sent me, with only 4 words. "We need to talk." And she replied almost instantly. "Address." Now she stood before me. Melissa Carter, the wife of the man Haley was cozied up with at the restaurant. She looked like someone who had spent weeks pretending she was okay, the kind of tired that settles into the bones, not just the skin. Her eyes were red around the edges, but sharp, alert, like she'd come here prepared for whatever truth waited behind my door. "Chris," she asked softly, almost like she already knew the answer. I nodded and stepped aside. "Come in." She walked in with the kind of careful steps people take when they aren't sure if they're entering a battlefield or a support group. I gestured her toward the dining table, the same table where Haley and I had eaten countless meals, celebrated anniversaries, and shared plans for the future, plans she apparently never intended to keep. Melissa sat, placed her purse beside her, and folded her hands together tightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I didn't want to believe it at first, but when I saw your text, I knew. I've suspected for a while, but seeing them together like that." Her voice cracked, and she pressed her lips together to steady herself. I sat across from her, placing Mark's printed photo on the table. She stared at it for a long, painful moment before exhaling shakily. "That's my husband," she whispered. "Chase. He told me he was mentoring a junior colleague tonight." She let out a sad, broken laugh. "Guess I know who the colleague is." I swallowed the burning sensation rising in my chest. Haley told me she was meeting a client. Our eyes met, and for the first time that night, neither of us felt alone. We stayed quiet for a moment, the weight between us heavy but strangely grounding. 2 strangers, connected by betrayal we didn't ask for, but had to face anyway. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "No." Melissa shook her head firmly. "I'm sorry for you. You've been blindsided too. And the worst part is, they didn't even try to hide it well. That was the thing. The carelessness hurt more than the act itself. They didn't just betray us. They assumed we'd stay clueless forever." Melissa leaned back, wiping the corner of her eye. "How long do you think it's been happening?" "Months," I admitted. She hasn't been the same. The excuses, the late nights, the sudden interest in getting aesthetic for work. It all started long before tonight. She nodded slowly. "Same with Chase. New clothes. More time at the gym. Said he was networking." She rolled her eyes. I should have known networking doesn't usually come with perfume on his shirt. Her voice trembled again, but she didn't fall apart. She was stronger than she realized. "We need to be smart about this, Melissa," I said, lowering my voice. "If we act emotional, they'll dodge responsibility. But if we stay calm and patient, they won't have anywhere to run." Melissa looked up at me with a mixture of hurt and determination. "What did you have in mind?" I paused before answering. "I want them to see the truth. Not in anger, not in a fight. I want to take away their ability to twist the story, to pretend it was misunderstood or taken out of context." Her eyes sharpened. "You want them caught in their own lie." "Exactly." Melissa slowly exhaled, absorbing the idea. "I never thought I'd be sitting with a stranger planning how to confront my husband." I gave a weary smile. "I never thought my wife would give me a reason to." We talked for nearly half an hour, about our marriages, our routines, the way small things had changed without us noticing. She told me how she and Chase once spent Sundays hiking, how he used to bring her flowers without a reason. I told her how Haley used to run her fingers through my hair while we watched movies, how she'd sneak notes into my wallet before I left for work. Those memories felt like stories from different lives. Eventually, Melissa looked at the clock. "They'll probably be wrapping up soon." Chase said he would be home around 10. And Haley texted she'd be late too. I replied. We both knew what that meant. "They're together," she whispered. I nodded. Most likely. Melissa clenched her jaw but stayed composed. So what do we do? You stay, I said firmly. Sit right here. Let her walk through the door, thinking everything is normal. Let him see you, calm and collected, sitting in my home. And when she walks in, I let the unfinished sentence hang. Melissa finished it. They'll understand exactly what they've done. We didn't need yelling. We didn't need chaos. We needed impact. Time passed slowly after that. The house felt too quiet, too still. I could hear Melissa breathing, hear the clock ticking, hear my own pulse thudding in my ears. Then, at exactly 9:47, I heard the sound of a key in the door. My chest tightened. Melissa's fingers curled around her phone. The doorknob turned. Haley stepped inside with that rehearsed smile. The same smile she probably gave Chase hours ago. And then she saw Melissa. Her entire world stopped. Her breath froze mid-inhale. Her keys slipped from her fingers. Her face drained of every bit of color. And that was only the beginning. Haley didn't speak. She couldn't. Her lips parted, then closed again. She blinked once, twice, like she was trying to reset reality. Like maybe if she stared long enough, Melissa would disappear and the truth would vanish with her. Melissa remained seated, posture calm, eyes steady. She looked composed in a way that was almost unnerving, like she had finally reached a place beyond fear or begging. She wasn't here to argue. She wasn't here to fight. She was here because she deserved answers. I stood slowly, not fast enough to seem aggressive, but not slowly enough to seem hesitant. Haley's eyes snapped to mine, wide with an emotion I hadn't seen from her in a long time. Guilt, fear, recognition of the destruction she'd created with her own hands. Chris, she whispered, voice cracking on the edges. What is she doing here? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't walk toward her. I just held her gaze, letting her discomfort grow in the silence she earned. You told me you were out with a client, I said. She was told her husband was mentoring someone. Melissa lifted the printed photo Mark had taken and placed it on the table with slow precision, not breaking eye contact with Haley. The soft paper hitting the wood sounded louder than it should have, like a gavel dropping. Haley inhaled sharply. Where did you get that? I didn't answer. Melissa did. My friend's manager sent it to him, she said, her tone almost painfully calm. My husband didn't realize he walked into a place owned by someone who has known Chris for 20 years. Haley's eyes flicked between us, panic spreading across her face like wildfire. Chris, this isn't what it looks like. I swear. Don't, I said softly, stopping her in one word. She stumbled back a step, as if my tone hit harder than a shout would have. I continued. You've had months to tell me the truth. You didn't. Haley's breathing grew shallow. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't. Her voice wavered. We were just talking. Melissa laughed under her breath. Not cruelly, but with exhaustion. Talking. She tapped the photo. Is that how you talk with someone who isn't your spouse? Leaning close like you're sharing secrets? Sitting like it's a date? Smiling like the person across from you is your entire world. Haley flinched. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't mean for anything to happen. That line hit me harder than the betrayal itself. Because I didn't mean for anything to happen wasn't denial. It was admission. I took a slow breath. Just answer this. How long? Tears filled her eyes immediately. Chris, please. How long? I repeated, firmer. She swallowed hard, her chin trembling. A few months. Melissa closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself as her throat tightened. Haley's tears began to fall, but I felt nothing soften inside me. I remember the mornings I made her coffee, the lunches I packed, the dinners I cooked while she texted someone else. I remember the nights she came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, and how I convinced myself it was stress, not secrets. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. It wasn't serious. I swear, it wasn't about love. I let out a humorless laugh. So what was it about? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No answer coming. I continued, my tone steady, almost eerily calm. Was it about excitement, attention, feeling desired, hearing compliments from someone new? Her silence was confirmation. Or was it the thrill? I asked. The thrill of being someone else's fantasy while pretending your husband was too boring to deserve honesty. Haley pressed her hands to her face, crying harder now. Chris, please. I messed up. I know that. But please don't do this in front of her. Oh, Now we care about privacy? Melissa said quietly. You didn't care about privacy when you were out in public flirting with my husband. Haley dropped her hands, her sorrow twisting into panic. Chris, can we talk alone? No, I said simply. She stared at me like the floor underneath her was cracking open. Why? Because you didn't cheat alone, I replied. You involved both of us. So both of us deserve the truth. She sank into a chair, hands shaking. I didn't know how to stop it. He made me feel. The sentence stopped there, but I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew what she meant. He made her feel wanted, while I was the one who made her feel safe. Some people choose the spark over the fire. They choose the illusion over the stability. Haley had chosen the excitement of being someone else's escape instead of appreciating the home she already had. Melissa leaned forward, her voice steady despite everything. Does Chase know you've told him? Haley blinked rapidly, confused. What? He thinks you're both safe to keep lying, Melissa explained. He doesn't know that Chris saw the picture. He doesn't know that I'm sitting here. Haley's face paled again. You told her? You showed her the photo? Yes, I said, unapologetic. Haley looked like she'd been slapped by her own choices. I spoke quietly. I'm done protecting your feelings, Haley. You weren't protecting mine when you stepped out on our marriage. She broke down completely, sobs shaking her shoulders. I'm sorry. Chris, I'm really sorry. I'll do anything. Please just give me a chance to fix this. I studied her for a long moment, and then I said the words that made her go still. You should save your apology for someone who needs it. I pointed toward the photo. Because my forgiveness isn't what you're fighting for anymore. Her voice cracked. What do you mean? I said, my tone cold and controlled. My revenge hasn't even started. Her eyes widened in terror, and Melissa looked at me with a quiet, knowing nod, because she understood. The calm before destruction is always the most terrifying. Haley's breath came out in short, panicked bursts, like she couldn't decide whether to run, collapse, or beg. She stared at me as if her world were hanging by the thinnest thread, and all I had to do was cut it. Chris, please, she whispered. Don't do something we can't undo. Her words were trembling, desperate, but they hit me as nothing more than white noise. Months of lies had drained any softness I ever had for her. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't wounded. I was steady, silent in a way she didn't know how to handle. Melissa sat quietly at the table, watching the unraveling with a kind of mourning exhaustion. You didn't care about consequences when you were sneaking around, she said gently, almost like she felt too tired to raise her voice. Now you want to control the outcome. Haley swallowed hard, tears streaking down her cheeks. Please, I wanted to stop. I swear I did. I leaned against the chair back, calm in a way that made her panic rise even faster. You could have stopped before the first message, before the first drink, before the first time you lied straight to my face. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I'm sorry. I'll end it. Tonight. I'll block him. I raised a hand. You're still not hearing me. She froze. Tonight isn't about whether you block him, I continued. Tonight is about me finally choosing myself. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Melissa looked at me, quietly supportive, as I reached into my pocket and placed something on the table. Haley's breath caught. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It was just paper. Paper that represented the months she wasted pretending she had more time to keep betraying me. Her voice came out barely audible. What is that? Proof, I said calmly, that I'm done letting you make decisions for both of us. Her shaking hands reached for the envelope, but she hesitated, like touching it might make reality irreversible. When she finally opened it, her knees nearly buckled. Separation papers, drawn up by a close friend who worked in family law, dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Before the picture, before the receipt, before the restaurant manager called me. Because I had known something was wrong long before tonight. Haley stared at the documents, then at me, horrified. You planned this. No, I said. You did. Melissa looked down at the papers with a quiet, sad nod, an understanding only someone equally betrayed could have. Haley shook her head vigorously, voice breaking. Chris, please, we can fix this. Therapy, counseling, anything. Don't throw away our entire marriage over one mistake. One, I repeated softly. You weren't even home twice last week. She opened her mouth but couldn't produce a single believable excuse. I continued, "This wasn't an accident, Haley. This was a pattern." Her tears flowed harder. "Please don't do this. I can change. I will change. Just tell me what to do." "You can start," I said quietly, "by accepting what you chose." She stepped toward me like a drowning woman reaching for a lifeline. "Chris, please, I love you." I shook my head once. "Love doesn't look like what you did." Her entire body seemed to collapse inward. "So that's it. You're just giving up on us." "No," I answered. "You gave up on us. I'm just finishing what you started." Melissa slowly stood, her voice steady but gentle. "Let's go, Haley. You can call Chase tonight. Tell him his wife knows. Tell him everything." Haley turned to her, stunned. "Why would you?" "Because he still thinks he got away with it," Melissa said, "and I want him to feel what you're feeling right now." Haley looked between us, broken, realizing that the two people she expected to fall apart were the ones standing firm. I opened the front door. Haley stared at me, through shimmering tears, desperate, devastated, reaching for a version of me that no longer existed. "Goodbye, Haley," I said softly. "Take care of yourself." Her knees weakened. Her voice cracked. "Chris, please." But Melissa gently took her arm, guiding her out as tears streamed down her face. The door closed behind them with a quiet finality. No slamming, no shouting, just closure. A clean end to a marriage she had walked out of long before I ever did. And for the first time in months, the house felt still. Not empty, not lonely, but finally mine again.